Hey everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your art Sherpa, and today I'm going to be talking to you about dry brush and dry brushing technique. We're going to do a little technique tune-up. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hello.
He's going to help bring this lesson to you by making sure that the cameras are pointing at what I'm doing, and so you can see everything really, really clearly, and also help me with the live chat that's going on during this live show. This is a live show event, but this is also a technique class. Normally, I know we traditionally would pre-film these, but with everything going on, I thought it'd be fun to get together live and
Live.
cover, some technique stuff. So that's what we're going to do.
That sounds so good. We are live.
Live, technique live. So right now, as you guys know, I'm having a little bit of artist block, and part of how I'm addressing that is doing the things that I can do, which is working on techniques or doing art study or doing small amounts of art at a time. And dry brushing was something that I had noticed as my medication has changed my ability to take what I know through my brain and push it out through my hand. Dry brushing was one of those things that I noticed my muscle memory was not as accessible to me as it had been before. And so I'm like, oh, I really need to kind of punch up my dry brushing. And so I thought, I'm going to take you on that journey. How would I do that? How do I tune in and tune up my dry brushing? And so you're going to learn a lot about different brushes, dry brushing, different bodies of paint, dry brushing, water control, and dry brushing, and sort of all the tips and tricks and things that my many years of art experience has taught me around this technique in acrylic. And this is going to be good if you just paint traditional paintings, but also if you do any miniature painting for like D&D. I'm going to make an extra little mention about higher flow paints and how to dry brush with those too. That way you can get that nice armor effect when you're out there trying to paint your miniatures.
Take this paint to its higher flow.
It's higher flow.
It's higher flow.
I have some higher flow, but I put out some random colors, and I always think this is best if you guys can play along. So I'm working in I'll show you what I'm working in. This is I'm going to get there eventually. This is my 1264 pad. It's a mixed media multimedia technique pad. They have it in 110 weight, and then they also have it in a 120 weight. The company that makes this, I just think the world of. Oh, Ramona, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ramona.
Love them so much. I am friends with them. I do have a relationship with them, but they're also like a company that made paper for 800 years. So they kind of know a little bit about this particular craft. And there's a lot of fascinating things about them. I'm going to do it in a 9x12 pad. If you're trying to learn acrylic paint, I do recommend having a multimedia pad around so you can practice a technique.
Thank you, Leanne. And
you can practice what you're doing and not have to do it on canvases that you would use later for painting, because then you can go back and review this. Linnea, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Linnea sent us a wonderful race sticker, and I love it. And I just really appreciate everything you guys do. You guys have been amazing. I've been reading every comment. I'm not responding to every comment, but I am reading every comment on Facebook and here on YouTube. And I just really appreciate the supportive community I have around me so much right now. It's been kind of mind-blowing. Now, the other thing I have is a bucket of water, and I have a paper towel near me. And I also have a handy-dandy paint rag. Looks great, doesn't it? But you can't get to dry brushing without water control. And that's just something to think about. A lot of times it feels like the dry brush or that technique is about the brush that you use. And it's true that there are some brushes that make dry brushing easier, but you can dry brush with any brush and any body of paint. You just have to understand where your Goldilocks zone is in the brush. And when I say Goldilocks zone, what I mean is, whenever you're doing an art technique, whatever that art technique is, there's a point where you have the water set just right, not too much or too little. And you have the paint load just right for the technique, not too much or too little. And you end up being right there in that just right space where the technique works. And a lot of times that becomes that innate muscle memory that we learn over time when we're painting. And if you have something that happens to you traumatically, you may actually find you need to go back and relearn a skill. Fun fact. That can happen. It doesn't always happen, but it can happen. Now, a trick I'm going to do to really enjoy my dry brushing is I'm going to go into my pad with a little bit of white paint and my artist knife, And I'm going to sort of squeeze this down a little. And you can see at the end of there, it does a nice little bit of kind of giving us some like texture. But I'm going to do a weird thing to have more texture in this strip of paint. I'm going to take an aluminum foil ball. I do not believe in aluminum foil ball painting. That's not what we're doing.
Sounds interesting, though.
Do believe that these little things make incredibly rough texture. And texture, this is an exaggeration of the weave of my canvas. So when I'm practicing my dry brush and I want to see how I'm doing, this can help me get that done. So I've made texture the whole way through.
I have to say, this is a bit avant-garde.
It's the aluminum foil ball?
Whoa. I was going to say, somebody... My monitor just turned off.
Uh-oh.
Maybe that's something that's going on with this monitor. Anyway, so check this out though. It's a little white. It's the white on white texture, a little avant-garde. You know, it's a little. Woo.
Well, and this is how we're going to see how our technique is going. Now I'm going to dry that with a hair dryer, and I recommend making some texture in your pad that you can play with because you want to see if you've got your load correct. This is going to be like the area that you're doing it. So we're going to practice it on a smooth surface, much harder to do, and we're going to practice our textures on a rough surface, easier to do. But to have the rough surface, I do need to dry it. I'm going to take my hair dryer and thoroughly dry my paint.
Thoroughly dry
my paint.
So, what? So good to see everybody, and thank you guys so much for all the love and support in chat and hanging out with us. I love seeing you guys, love hanging out with you. Thank you for chatting in here in group. I get to see everything come through, even if I can't necessarily comment or pass it on. Cinnamon gets to see the chat up there sometimes too. Depends on, she's juggling a lot of little windows up there, so sometimes she's able to see it, sometimes she's not. But know that I do, and I enjoy seeing you guys, and I enjoy you being here, and thank you for being part of our community and doing all that stuff. That's pushing the like and the comments and the subscribes and the other little buttons that are down there in the YouTubery land for, telling the computers that things are happening. Still drying the avant-garde white on white texture that we've done. You could have chosen something with contrast or...
Could have done that. Could have totally done that, and that would have been amazing, but I'm more amazing because now the texture will reveal itself.
That's true. We're going to see the texture
Now I'm going to start with a brush you don't normally think of for dry brushing. I'm going to start with a round that has a smoothing kind of bristle on, kind of wonderful. This is the Sepia by Raphael, and it's a very smooth brush, and I normally use it to get fine and fluid lines. But here I'm going to show you how I would get dry brush with it. I'm going to get the brush wet. I go, and then I come over my paper towel and I take that extra water right off. And then I'm going to work it with my fingers and open up this brush. Right? Let's load up with a little bit of quinacridone. And then you're going to go back to the paper towel. And then I'm going to come here to the paper. And I'm going to dry brush out. And if I need to take off more paint, I will do that. And so here I'm on smooth paper. It couldn't be harder to do things than on smooth paper. And I can keep offloading pigment.
So many buttons to push.
So many.
I was trying to get the focuses.
And so what you're trying to do, and I'll put my glasses on so I can actually see what I'm doing. That would be amazing. There I am.
Nice to see you, Maureen.
Right, so you just come and you play with your brush. The other thing that you can do is you can open the brush up.
What does that mean?
You come in and you pull the filaments apart with your fingers.
Just open the brush up.
And you just open the brush up.
All right, hold on.
Right. The thing is that any technique can be done on any brush. Now, I can also come over and I grab a little bit more paint. I'm going to take it over my paper towel. Now let's come over here and I can dry brush over my texture, and you can then see, oh yeah, I've got a nice dry brush going on with my round. That's the hardest, right? A smooth round brush, but sometimes you will need a round brush to dry brush with, and you can come in and work it, and you want to feel where that sweet spot is. Where are you getting that sweet spot? Now, this is when you can, I'm going to rinse it away. I'm going to dry it off on my towel and put it back because, you know, responsibleness. And then you can make a note, you know, that this was your round brush. And so later when you're messing with your stuff, you can be like, how did my round brush do? Sometimes as artists and as student artists, we forget this part of the academic learning, right? It's fun to do the painting projects and it's really fun to get in and do that. But sometimes it's important for us to also come in and, you know, really learn how to do our techniques with the tools that we have and the paint that we have. Now I'm going to take a brush that's easier to dry brush. This is a Catalyst brush by Princeton Select, and I'm going to go ahead and load like just blue. I don't get it wet at all. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to have a much easier time dry brushing. I don't have to work the brush at all. It just, because it has stiff filaments, because there's no water in there, I'm going to be able to easily come in and do that. And I can also come over to my texture and you can kind of see how this can dry brush that texture right in. The other thing that you can do is almost blend when you're dry brushing. So there's wet into wet blending, which, you know, everybody's like, how do I blend better wet into wet? But dry brushing actually is that other technique you can use to get gradated transitions. And it's especially helpful over rough surfaces where blending isn't really possible. So this is a technique that you want to be comfortable in and you want to feel good in. So you can imagine my surprise when I went to go do a painting and I was like, my dry brushing technique, all of my techniques are sort of all over the place. What's going on? You know, and that'll happen to you sometimes. Now, you may be new and you haven't developed your technique. You can say the brush if you need to. You can write it out. I know some of you are like, will do beautiful like handwriting and you'll make your books gorgeous. And I love that about you. Another brush that we can think of pretty easily for dry brushing is, of course, a Hog Bristle Brush. But the Hog Bristle Brush, it's kind of a challenge because when it's dry, before you start painting with it, oh my goodness, dry brushing, let's get some dioxazine purple on here, right? And we wipe it off on the paper towel. You can see it's just super easy to dry brush with. But the minute I take this over to, say, rinse it out and change a color, the brush begins to soften and hold water, and then it makes my water control much more challenging. So I'm going to come over here and kind of hit this up, doing some dry brushing over my little texture, doing a little gradated blending because I come back up over my blue, and you'll see that it does give you a nice transition, but I want to change color. I'm going to rinse out thoroughly. I'm going to drag off my extra water. I'm going to get my paint towel and pull as much water out of this brush as I can. Then I'm going to come over to my paper towel and pull out more water as I can. Back to the paper towel. And I can continue dry brushing. But if I didn't know that I needed that much adjustment to get it back to a dry brushing brush, right? I'm just doing the hard yellow to purple. Come up here with that hard yellow to purple. So I have the brushes I have, and maybe you buy all the brands that I recommend, or maybe you went and got a pack of brushes on Amazon. The brands I recommend because of their quality and the commitment that companies have to their consumers. That said, this isn't a magic dry brushing brush. It's a quality made brush, but you may have also bought a Hog Bristle brush in a big set. The trick to getting better results from your techniques is this practicing of the techniques in an isolated place where you can really stop and think about how your tools are working and how your technique is working for you. I'm going to rinse that out like one does and put that aside. So we knew that was going to be pretty chill and pretty easy to dry brush with. And I'm going to come here and grab another brush that I think we all know will do a good job dry brushing, which is the Raphael Textura. It's easier to dry brush with a stiff brush that has stiff filaments, right? It's easier to dry brush with a brush that has a gradated surface, right? Where there's sort of this flowing surface to this edge surface, and the way this edge is, I can do quite a lot. So if I come and I load up my green paint a little bit and maybe some of my yellow, and I'll make sure I don't have too much on here. I come on this side, it's pretty easy to dry brush. The brush just is made to do this. It's a brush made for heavy-bodied acrylic paint. So getting those dry brushy, scumbly results, I'm not having to worry about that much. Right? I don't even get it wet and I can go. But what if I got it wet? I have to do exactly what I did with the Hog Bristle Brush. I have to get it rinsed out and pull all the extra water I can back out of the brush. Let's load up with some pink this time. And you can just wipe off on a paper towel. And you can see I get just a dusting of color then, don't I? I mean, you can't even see the color. Look, it's all over my nail. You can't even see the color on the filaments. My nails are so great. I dry brush my nails. Come here and grab a little bit of a load, and I can go back into this. And you can see it really easily goes over this rough surface with the dry brush, leaving that texture to show underneath. When you're doing a canvas, you would see the weave of the canvas. You know, so this is just me practicing with different surfaces and getting different results. If I go into my purple, you can come here and dry brush even with the edge of it. Right? Wipe off on a paper towel. Back into this. I know it seems silly to have a whole class on this, but
No, not at all. I think this is really good. Everybody in chat's really been enjoying it. And
it's an important technique.
yeah, this is really just really good here. I think folks are definitely enjoying it.
Now, one of the things that I do have that I'm going to put this aside over here is I have these very soft blending brushes, right? And we think of these as brushes for blending. Sometimes, though, I use these to do a dry brush. And I actually start them out kind of wet. And then I pull all the extra water out of them. And this one, I will work it really through out of the brush. I'm going to load up with a little bit of my gray here. This is my Payne's Gray. I never use it on the show, but Payne's Gray is a color that I love. If you've been watching the kitty painting that I've been doing, that's been really heavy in the Payne's Gray. So you can see here I have a blending brush. And I'm getting a dry brush experience out of it. And if you're having trouble with it at any point, you just work that water up out of your brush. Like I can fold over my paper towel. See? So every brush in your brush bucket is a dry brush or a blending brush.
Any brush can be a dry brush.
Any brush can be a dry brush. And all anyone means about a dry brush is instead of having a load of water that carries smooth and fluid techniques across your surface, a dry brush is a brush that is loaded with much less water, much less water, then much less paint. And again, you can always open up the brush so that when you go to paint with it, you know, it will. You can do stippling too. So if you're having any trouble, like where it is on the paper towel, say it's having trouble getting the water out, you've got to get that water out to get the effect that you want. And that's really where the struggle is finding that sweet spot where the water comes out of the brush and your brush pressure tends to be light. You don't have a lot of kinetic weight from your body through your shoulder, through your arm, into the... I'm being boring today.
No, you're not.
I feel like I am. All right. The Deerfoot Stippler.
So, did you see Maureen was
No.
asking, why don't you use Payne's Gray?
Because I try not to make my students buy every color that I like because I have a very large palette and I find that a limited palette allows beginners to start painting a little easier. If I hit them with every single color I like, you can be like 20 colors on the palette. Like, I like all the quins. If it says quinacridone, gold, I love it. Red, I love it. There's no quinacridone that they've ever made that I didn't love as a color. Payne's Gray, Lamp Black. There's just so many colors that there are to like. It's really just hard to pick one.
Mm.
Now I can take my Deerfoot Stippler and then I just come and tap it into my paper towel, right? Now I usually keep my paper towel over here kind of in this camera and I'm tapping into it. But you can see that brush just lends itself to that type of technique. But I couldn't get this result, this stippling technique, unless I got the water out of the brush and I had a nice light load.
Yeah.
That's, kind of the secret of getting that good result out of that brush. And rinse that to the side. Now, if you're doing miniatures, as you sometimes might be.
As you might.
That's already more challenging because, and I'm going to show you, this is one of my favorite paints. This is Alpha Acryl. It's acrylic paint. It's very fluid. It's designed for really spectacular painting on leather, painting on different surfaces. It was made by a motorcycle artist. I'm going to just drip out a little bit of it. I'm going to try to drip out a little bit of it. I don't want to squeeze it because it can come out too much. All right, I'll do this. This is, some very helpful person recapped my paint.
Was that me?
It might have been. But the manicure's already lost, so I guess...
You hand it to me,
I would love that.
Here.
So you guys don't have to watch me do that. So,
this is a brand new one.
Are you sure?
Yeah, so what this is,
got into that
not
one.
this one. No, so this is what they come with these original little cap seals that
The seal is very nice because it keeps the paint very, very, very fresh.
And we can put it back in I'll set it over here to put it back in later.
Okay, thank you. And then that way the paint stays fresh.
Yeah.
But this is a high pigment, very fluid, high viscosity paint, like what you might use in miniature painting. Okay, so you can see that that's just really, really fluid. If I come back with, say, my stipple brush, I've got to make sure that brush is really no water on it at all. And then I'll come in and do a light load and then over to my paper towel to offload until I can get a dry brush with that paint. And there it goes. So when you're trying to do textures on miniatures over the rough edge of miniatures, these techniques actually transfer very, very well. Miniatures are tiny little figurines used for role-playing games.
Yeah.
I can do that with this one. I'll go back to my original round brush and we'll go back into that technique of opening the brush up. I'll pick a different one. This is a Precision. So this is a softer brush than even the sepia is. I'm going to come and just very lightly load it. And you can see it's already giving me a dry brush. I didn't go into the water and I just very lightly loaded it. But I can come in and open it up and I'll do a light load onto my brush from the palette. And then I can just gently go over the top surface, catching just the high points. See how I'm doing? So whether it's on a canvas where you're trying to get a transition or you're trying to create an effect of metal or leather or anything rustic, or you're trying to paint an orc and you'd like his armor to look like it's a little patina, it's the same, same, same.
Mm.
There we go. So that is the basics of dry brushing. If you had any questions, I will take them now.
Whoop, make sure you get all my things right. So,
And it's okay if there's none.
When would you dry brush? When, that is the question.
That's
when
a good question. When to dry brush? So the object itself dictates the technique. I find dry brushing is often applied in rough surfaces in the world, like wood or rocks or things that have an intense patina, like leather or copper that's aging. I wouldn't necessarily dry brush on glass, though I could. Like if I was painting a glass, I might want to do more blended techniques and more clean techniques. The object itself sort of tells you what it needs. That's one of the areas I'm interestingly challenged right now in my art, is like I can look at the, reference and be like, I know the techniques, I know what needs to happen, but the knowing and the getting to the muscle memory, right? Those aren't really happening right now. But really what you're looking at is, if I'm doing the beach, a beach can be a great place to dry brush the sand because of its rough texture. So if things feel textural and rough to you, dry brushing can be a really fantastic way. Dry brushing is also really effective when you've been trying to do a transition, like a gradated blend, and maybe the blending hasn't been working out particularly well for you. We're going to do a blending class, but let's say it wasn't working out for you. You could actually do dry brushing to create blending. A lot of dry brushing in portraiture. I know I get into a lot of dry brushing when I do metallic effects, especially if they're old and rustic. Old and rustic is always a good clue that dry brushing is maybe going to come into it. So when you see me working on my channel and we're doing a particular type of subject matter, you'll notice that some subject matters are a lot of dry brush and some subject matters are almost no dry brush. But it's a technique that acrylic is really well made for. Like acrylic does dry brushing better than any other media, in my opinion. And it comes up in a lot of places. Sometimes some artists will sometimes kind of resist the dry brush as a technique. And what I want to say is it's just a technique. It's not a crutch. It's not a workaround or a trick. It's just a technique. It's one of many, many techniques that we have as artists that we can use in our painting. I really appreciate you guys coming out today. I know I'm a little weird energy, low key, and I think that's a little bit of the medication and stuff. It's one of the reasons why I've been nervous about going live, because I'm not my usual like woo self. But I feel woo in my heart. I'm woo woo. I'm woo woo in my heart.
Yeah. No, I think this has been great.
I hope this has been a little fun.
So thank you so much to everybody in the chat. It's been really nice seeing everybody.
It's really incredible. And thank you so much for the stickers and encouragement and kind words and messages that are coming in. We're going to be live again and doing a very simple and fun painting on Tuesday. So if you'd like to get together with your friends here and have a chat and do a painting with me, we're going to do a nice simple sunset, and we're going to work on having a better silhouette, where our silhouette is a little more complex and beautiful, making our simple painting a little more visually engaging. I think that that's kind of a fun thing that we're going to go over. And I may go live again and do another technique class coming up.
I just want to say thank you to Ramona and Lena again for the sticker support.
All you guys,
all of our patrons and all of our lovely people.
Thank you to all the patrons. If you're a patron, we are doing a Zoom class tomorrow. We're going to do a line and wash, and we're going to play art game. So that should be a lot of fun for us. And then Tuesday. And then I may have to rest for a while, but you'll see things coming up on the schedule. You'll see me working on the kitty cat painting. You'll see me working on different paintings and projects. And I'm here. I'm doing okay. I'm actually doing really okay. Just like, each day is sort of different from the day before. And I'm just sort of taking it day by day now. I'm just kind of like, how are we doing today? I'm like, hey, John, I think we can go live today.
Yeah.
I think I'm up for that. in a really good space, or, some days I might be like, I'm sleeping. So I am absolutely taking care of myself, getting my sleep. I hope you're taking care of yourself, getting your sleep, and making sure you're doing okay. I love you, babe.
I love you too.
Thank you for doing this with me today. I want you guys to be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and I'll see you at an easel sometime real soon. Bye bye.